Okay, so we've gone ahead and created our fly front shield and facing. Now we're going to go ahead and do finish off our waistband. All right. So if you remember in the previous video demo, what we first marked out before we made our shield and facing was how wide we wanted our waistband to be. Okay, and in this case, we wanted a waistband that was 1.5 inches wide. All right. So you can see here on my front and back, we've marked that out. And again, I've made two fronts because our waistband is actually going to be asymmetrical. Now, what does that mean? It means this waistband, the waistband on the side of the pant that has the facing, only comes to center front. Okay. Here on this waistband that has the shield, notice the shield sticks out from the pant. Okay. So we want the waistband to extend all the way out to the edge of the shield. All right. How wide do we make our shield? We made it 1 3/4 inches. So this is going to have to come out another 1 3/4 inches. Okay. So let's go ahead and start drawing in what our waistband is going to be like. All right. So the first thing we want to remember is that this waistband here is extending out all the way. Okay. Now because it's extending out, it's going to be overlapped by this other side of the waistband. So I want to make sure that this side of the waistband is the part that extends out is the exact same shape as this part here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take my front sloper pattern and I'm going to line up the crotch, center front crotch, with the center front crotch that I've already drafted, and I can line up the notch of my hip line if I need to. There we go, to extend it. Alright, and now I'm just going to trace off, make sure it's nice and even. I'm just going to trace off in this direction on my waistline, more than I need. I'll just go to that first dart, like so. Alright, so now you can see I have this shape that's going to be, and you can see it curves up a little bit. Alright, so let's go ahead and extend up. Here's my shield that I drafted on here. Let's extend that line all the way up. Square that up the rest of the way. Okay. I'm also just going to mark that this is my center front. It's good to know. And now I'm just going to perfect this. I'm going to do it in red because it's not going to make it permanent yet. You know, I'm going to draw this line in nicely. Okay. All right, that looks good. Now, if there's any issues here, once I make my pattern, I'll line everything up and I can see if it works or not. And if it's not working, then I can just make a little alteration. Maybe I'll have to take a little bit off or add a little on or something like that, and that's not a big deal. Okay. Another thing we want to think about this waistband. If you look at different pairs of pants, some waistbands have side seams, some waistbands have center back seams. Some waistbands don't have a side seam or center back seam. The only opening of the waistband is at the front. Okay. Now, why do they do that? There can be a couple reasons. First reason is cost. Okay. The more seams you have, the more expensive something is going to be to sew it together because you have to sew that many more seams. The less seams you have, the less times you have to sew on it. So that can reduce cost. Okay. A reason you might be putting seams in it is because of the grain of the waistband. Okay, you might want straight grain all the way around. Okay, or you may not care about that. You might not might not mind having something start at straight grain and end up at bias somewhere. Okay, so you want to think about that as well. Also, fit sometimes. You know, because of fit reasons, depending on where the garment is sitting on your body. Maybe you need to have a seam there, okay, for fit reasons. All things to take into consideration. The waistband we're going to do is not going to have any seams in it, okay? We're going to eliminate, if we can, our side seam and our center back seam, which should be possible, shouldn't be an issue. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is kind of go through and true where my waistband is meeting my actual pant. So I've already drawn on a guideline. I'm just going to use my curve ruler and connect all those. And I'm just doing it in red. There we go. All right. Notice we have darts in our garments, okay, or in our pant legs, and that's fine, but we are going to eliminate the darts from our waistband. All right, and you'll see that in just a moment. Okay, I could also trace off this one if I wanted to, but I don't need to. I only need to trace off this one and this one. And I'll actually put 2 pieces of paper underneath this one. So you'll see what I'm doing. Alright, so let's go ahead and place some paper underneath our waistbands, or where we've drafted our waistbands, so we can go ahead and trace that off. Okay, so now I have my paper for tracing off. For my front one, I'm going to do 2. And place it right underneath, like so. Okay. On my back one, I can just do 1, but I want you to be able to see the full waistband as I put it together, so I am going to do 2 here as well. So I'll place that under there. Okay. Let's pin these in place so they don't move when we trace off. And basically what we're about to create is a working pattern that we will then create our pattern from. Okay, so let's start by tracing here in our front. We're going to come up where our shield extension is, come across our waist, pick your darts, and side seam, mark side seam, and then let's do where the waistband attaches to the waist of the pant. Mark that. Mark your center front, and we're going to mark each of the dart legs and center fold line of your darts. Okay, front is done. Let's go to the back. Again, mark your side seam, mark the waist or top of the waistband. Mark center back. Mark where your waistband attaches to the waist of your pant. And mark each of your dart legs and center fold line of your pant. There we go. Okay, so take your trace offs. We'll start with our front. First thing I want to do is label certain parts of it. I'm going to label this line was my center front. This line is center front. And on the back, I'm going to do the same thing. This way we don't get mixed up side seams or center back or anything. So I'm just going to label center back and center back. Okay. Leave aside for a moment. We're going to start with our front. We're going to go ahead and true these. I'm going to do it in red because I want to make sure we don't want to change anything right away. And I'm going to go mark my center front, and I'll start marking this waist. Okay, so now I'm going to cut apart. I'm going to cut down one of my dart legs, okay, not the center fold line or anything, but one dart leg. Just cut right down that. And now let's close that dart by bringing dart leg to dart leg and close it. And then go ahead and tape it shut. So match up the dart legs and top and bottom of the waistband, tape shut. Do the same thing on your other dart. Close that dart. And tape it shut. Okay. So it's not looking so bumpy now. I'm still going to have to true this a little bit more, but we're going to wait until we get the whole waistband together. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just go around, starting at center front, around the back, and back to front. Okay? So let's take our back and let's true that. There's my side seam of my back. And here's my center back. Okay, so let's go ahead and close these darts up. And let's cut right on side seam on this back panel. So, and let's close up right where our two side seams meet. Let's tape those together. So match up your waistband. Tape those together. Okay. Let's do other back. And now let's match up our two center backs, like so. And now last, we're back to center front. Do the same thing. Okay, now what we're not going to do is trace on that extension because we don't need it on this side. So let's go ahead and cut this. Alright, we've now created a full waistband, stretching from center front to side seam to center back to the next side seam, all the way back to center front. Now I'm going to use my black pin and start truing the lines. Notice here at center back there's a little bit of a V. We want to smooth those out and dull them down and make them round. And right here it dips in. I want to smooth that out so it blends a little nicer from side to side. Okay. I am going to mark my side seam. And I have a notch at where each of my darts were. Smooth this out. This is the extension. And we want a notch at this extension, which the front is. notches at each of our back darts. Center back I'll have a notch. We'll also mark our center back as well. And then once we've marked our center back, we're going to fold this right on center back in half. Now typically we don't make the whole waistband up. We just do from center front to center back. This is an asymmetrical waistband. Even those we don't need to make up from one side to the other, from center front to center front. But I wanted to show you the whole big picture so you can see exactly what we're doing. All right. Now I folded this on center back and I'm just checking to make sure things match up. And what I'm going to do is add seam allowance to this all the way around, except for at center back. I'll add 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then we'll cut it out. I also want to transfer my center front line to the other side just to make sure things are matching up correctly. Okay, so now we've folded it under. We're going to add seam allowance all the way around. We're going to do 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to put a couple pins in. And then let's cut it out. Okay, unpin it. Notice here at center back, it's kind of got a sharp point. We do not like that. So let's get rid of it. Smooth that out. Trim it off. Okay, fold it back up. I want to make sure I notch all my notches. Okay, now when I unfold this, it may not match up perfectly to what I taped on the other side, and that's okay. And that's because my taping is not perfect probably. And I'm going to notch on this side too, center front, side seam. Okay, I'm also going to notch my center back. Because this paper is moving around on me, I'm going to tape down these sides. Okay, now remember we have the extension on this side. We don't want the extension here. So what are we going to do? We're going to just add a 1/2 inch onto our center front. And let's reconnect this center front the correct way. And add a 1/2 inch onto it. And go ahead and cut that off. So now we've created a waistband that starts at center front, and we can almost walk it right out. Side seam, and it goes through center back. And then comes back this way. Yep. And then side seam. Just following my line. And right back to center front. Fits perfect. Okay. So one more thing we need to do is add our grain line. Where do we want to add it? Okay, so this waistband is all in one piece. We could add it at center back, or we could add it here at center front. We need to think. Would it be more comfortable to have some form of bias at center front, where you might have your stomach or belly, or do you want it here at center back? Okay, I'm actually thinking I'd rather have my front more on bias, so I'm going to put my grain line right at center back. And there's the waistband. Okay, in the next demo, we're going to do our set-in pocket.